We're rolling. Hello. Now this is the most gangster tripod layout I've ever had. I don't have any cameras here. I don't have any SD cards. So I'm filming on my iPhone, which is on top of a water bottle, which is on top of a drone case. And I'm doing what I can to film this video for you guys because I really wanted to do it. And Erwan, who edits these videos, has all of my cameras and SD cards. And it didn't feel safe us kind of like trying to exchange those because I am still positive to COVID. And so I didn't want to risk it. But today is a very simple video I posted on Instagram saying that you guys could send me all your little nicks and knacks about COVID, like little questions you may have. And I'm going to try and answer some of them. As I said on Instagram, I'm not trying to be an expert. I'm not pretending to be an expert, and I do not have all the answers. All I know is that I have been through being tested positive to COVID and having the quarantine time and all that jazz. So maybe there's something you can learn through my experience. So I'm just going to give you my honest, unfiltered answer to some of your questions you sent in, and hopefully maybe we can use this platform to help educate people better on something which seems to be kind of all over the place, and there are so many rumors, answers, you know, wrong information, right information, that we don't really know what to do with it. So someone who's lived through it might as well use the platform and use it for something cool. Anyways, the sun glare may get pretty nuts at some point, bear with me. It's just I didn't have any lights or anything, so I decided to just sit in the sun, and that would probably work. Right, questions. What did it feel like? Felt unpleasant, I'm not gonna lie. I had a headache where I was in bed for like 3 days, and then it was coming in waves. So there were like days where I was completely out of it, and then the next day I felt fine, and then it would come back 2 days later, and then nothing, and feeling unwell kind of lasted 10 days or so. But, you know, I see a lot of people saying, you know, oh, it's just a flu. Yeah, it's not, you know, like I wasn't in a really seriously bad way at all. But I was unwell, and it was like a seriously violent flu, and one that lasted quite long. What medication did you take? HCQ. Now, so I took actually just paracetamol, and I was taking vitamin C, and I was just eating healthy and kind of just trying to live and sleep and do everything as healthy as I could. So nothing too intense. I didn't have to go to hospital. I stayed home and just took paracetamol really when my headache was getting really bad. How bad was illness compared to a normal flu, and would you go on holiday again anytime soon? Illness, well, as I said, it was like I mean, for sure it is relatable to a flu the way you feel, but that kind of like, I don't want to make it, again, I don't want to over dramatize things, and I don't want to make it sound too brutal, but I also don't want to kind of play it down too much, because it is brutal and you don't want to get this thing, whether you're young or not. You know, it's going to make you suffer, and it's going to make you suffer for an extended period of time. As I said, I was not well for 10 days. So it's like the most violent flu you've kind of ever had. So or at least I had certainly ever had. And yeah, I mean, I had like all my muscles that were completely clogged up. I couldn't sleep. Like I kept waking up in the middle of the night. I think I had like 7 nights in a row where basically I just wasn't sleeping well at all, which I know doesn't sound too bad, but it's nasty like when you're living through it for that many nights in a row. And you know, I had one morning where I could like barely get out of bed because all my muscles were completely clogged up. And yeah, it's nasty. Like you do not want to get this, and you do not, like, I really remember the second night, I remember waking up during the night and thinking like, I do not wish this upon anybody. Like, this is so unpleasant. So you don't want to pass it on to anyone, so you need to be responsible with what you do. Where did you get special tests which you can send by post? How did you cope with anxiety? Yeah, so in my last video I spoke about these tests that I was kind of being a guinea pig, I guess, in some way to try and evolve you know, that technology to be able to have more home tests, so people can get tested. In France, we're actually quite lucky, it's not too hard, but I think in like in the UK it's a lot harder to get tested and stuff like that. So this is through your spit, basically. You can do a home test and send it back to a lab. Now, where do you get these tests? So I was actually working with a lab, the guys who tested me positive, and because they need positive tests to kind of see how, wait, let me get in the sun a little bit more so it's a bit less. So yeah, they wanted to get a positive test so that they could, you know, see if it was working, if their research was working, basically. And yeah, so right now you can't really get them, but hopefully that technology will evolve so that you can in the near future. As soon as I get an update, I'll let you guys know. I haven't had an update yet, but as soon as I do, I'll let you know. Hey, Seth, been following you for years. Thank you. Goog789, thank you very much. What was the worst part of your COVID experience? I mean, it's not really a good part, so the worst part, probably like worrying about if I can like giving it to anyone. Because I was super lucky, probably acted in a way which was beneficial to not passing it on to people, where I just quarantined like the second there was any question that I may be at risk. But nevertheless, like I was on holiday with a few people when I caught it, and you know, I was worrying about them, their families, because a friend of mine had then gone to see his whole family. Thankfully, no one, so everyone that I was in contact with between the time where we think I got it in a restaurant and the time that I self-quarantined, I contacted every single person that I was knowingly in contact with, and thankfully no one came out positive other than myself, so that was really good. But obviously you need to wait for a few days to get the answers, so I think that period was really nasty, like not knowing if someone else had gotten it through you, because even if it's not your fault, like it really is like luck of the draw in a way. You know, if you get it, it's just unlucky. You know, obviously some people take more risks than others, but there's a lot of people who take a lot more risks without getting it than people who take very few risks and get it. So it's hard to kind of know. And so even though it's not necessarily your fault, if you did everything you could, you self-quarantine, you still have that sort of level of guilt if someone were to get it. And I'm super grateful I didn't have to go through that. But there was a period of days where I was wondering about that, and that was really unpleasant. I had a slightly sore throat for a day or two now, and it's turned to a slight dry cough, wondering if I'm overthinking. Look, you maybe are, but there's no harm in checking. That's my theory. Like, you're maybe overthinking it, but you're going to be stressing over the next few days, weeks, if you sustain this dry cough. You know, there is a chance at the moment, there is this pandemic that has something to do with COVID. So if you're in a place where you can, if you're able to get transport to go somewhere where you can get tested, and if you can afford the test, if it's not covered by your health insurance, if those things are in place, then definitely get tested if you can. And if they're not, better safe than sorry, self-quarantine yourself until you no longer have those symptoms. So that's what I would say. If you're like in any doubt at all, I think it's our duty, and it's the least we can do, is to take the steps of either getting tested or self-quarantining. Those are your two options, and anything other than that feels a little bit wrong and out of place, to be honest. Again, like, this is my view. I'm not going to try and impose things on you guys. This is my view on how we should react to this to be able to get through it all together. But as I said at the beginning of the video, I'm not an expert, I'm not a doctor, and I'm not trying to pretend to be. I'm just trying to give you my perspective. Fever and depressed, two completely different things. I'll go one by one on those. Fever, I didn't really have a fever actually. So that's why, for example, the last question, like I have a cough, even if you don't have a fever, it doesn't mean you're not positive. So I didn't have a fever. I think the highest I got was like 37.9 or something like that. So nothing too worrying. I was tracking it all the time, but never had a fever. I never had a dry cough. You know, I never lost my taste or my scent. I never had a lot of the classic symptoms. So it just goes to show that everyone's body reacts. Sorry guys, my phone fell again. I'm sorry. I know you like deserve better effort put into these videos, but I just really wanted to make this video as quickly as possible to get the message out while everything was still kind of fresh in my head. Now, depressed, no, you know, thankfully, you know, first of all, quick thing on that. If it was the case, I would tell you, I think it's nothing to be ashamed of if you are going through depression, and I think it's something serious, and I think often talking about it, whether that's to a lot of people, to one person, to someone you know, or someone in therapy that's completely outside, is nothing to be ashamed of. So I would probably actually tell you guys about it, but actually I'm morally, mentally, I've been absolutely fine. So thankfully that's been really nice, and has made this whole period easier, because whilst I wasn't feeling great physically, mentally, even though I've been here, I've been quarantined alone, and been alone for 16, 17 days now. I haven't really minded it. I have great people around me, so I've been able to FaceTime, you know, and my parents who dropped me off like my shopping and stuff, who I was so lucky happened to be in town for like 3 weeks during this period. So that was lucky timing. They would stand at like the front gate while I stood inside at the window, and we would kind of talk like that. So I did have contact with people, and reading through your, and I'm not just saying this, you know, because it's like something you say when you're a YouTuber or whatever, like, reading the comments means a lot, but genuinely, like, taking the time to go through not just like some of the comments, but all the comments on recent things, videos, Instagram posts, looking at emails, like going through Instagram DMs, like all that stuff has really kind of kept me there and given me that contact with people, which has been great. So I think, the advice I would give to someone in a similar situation is don't lie back too much and kind of dig yourself into your own hole. Like, call your friends, they'll pick up the phone, they're there for you. Communicate with people online, do things that you usually don't have time to do. Like, I was out and I have it's not really a garden, I have a terrace with a few plants. Like, took care of those, cleaned up the terrace, ordered some stuff for the house that I've been wanting to do for ages. Like, I did a bunch of things that I wouldn't have usually given me the time or the mental space to do. So that's kind of kept me sane, But yeah. So, fever, nope, and depressed, thankfully not either. But thank you for checking in. Just gonna adjust the sun again. Has this affected your job in any way? Like, it has definitely, yes. Yes, is the honest answer. Like, 2 weeks off completely means no videos, which just, feels odd. Like, feels weird not having made a video for a while and not having put anything out. But actually, you guys, your support's been great. I'm really happy you were super understanding of the fact that I couldn't put a video out. So that, and then other work that I do alongside, it's definitely put things on hold. I'm really lucky to have a great team around me on different projects who have kept the ball rolling on a lot of things, so that's been fantastic. But for sure it's had an effect, both a negative effect in terms of not being able to do too much work, but then also a positive effect in terms of being able to brainstorm and come up with new ideas and reflect on what was working and what we could improve on, and just taking a third person point of view, step back to reflect on things, is a luxury that I don't get too often, so that was nice. What was the worst part? As I said earlier in the video, there's a similar question. Worrying about having contaminated, is that the word? It feels very serious, but worrying about having passed on COVID-19 to anyone else. So especially, I have my 92-year-old grandma who lives here, who thankfully I did not see after I came back from holiday, but you start overthinking so much. I was like, what if I've had this for 2 weeks and I didn't know, and I saw her 2 weeks ago? So you start overthinking things way too much. My parents were in their 60s, so things like that you start really thinking about a lot, and that was definitely the worst part. I had one morning, which was, if you want to hear worst part other than that, because I guess I should probably elaborate, but one morning where I didn't sleep. I basically couldn't get sleep the whole night. I had banging headache. And I woke up in the morning and my muscles were so kind of swollen, completely just frozen. It felt like that. I really struggled to get out of bed. And so I kind of rolled a bit like that scene in Wolf of Wall Street, rolled to get paracetamol and stuff, because I really wasn't feeling well. So that was not pleasant. But apart from that, the rest you kind of just power through. As I say, I don't want to make it into a huge drama, but the rest was, I was just being at home and not being well. I think we've all been through it at some point in different stages in our lives, so you can probably imagine. Last one, I'll do a last one. You guys sent a bunch of questions in, but last one is, what's it actually like living with COVID-19? Very case by case is the conclusion I've come to through talking to different people and reading up about things. So my experience was that it sucked for about 10 days and I was drained and I was exhausted, but I didn't have any of the usual symptoms, and I ended up kind of bouncing back from it fairly quickly. When I started feeling better, I kind of came back from it, but that it came in waves, kind of 2 days not well, 2 days better, 2 days not well, kind of a bit like that. So yeah, that was my experience. But then other people have either had no symptoms, they've been tested and they were positive, and they had no symptoms. But then some people have been obviously in hospital and passing away from this. So it's a very case by case. So that's a tricky question to answer. That was the last question. One thing I do want to clear up that I spoke about in the last video was how I had a little finger blood test done, which came out negative, and then I self-quarantined myself before having the nose test done. Now, I didn't realize at the time, and I think it's important to use this platform to say it because I didn't realize at the time, so I'm sure there's other people out there who don't realize that test is purely basically to see, and this is my understanding of it. Again, if I say anything wrong, I apologize, but my understanding of it is that it's to see if you've got antibodies. So if you have once been in contact with COVID-19, it won't necessarily tell you if you've got it at the moment at which you do the test, because often it takes your body a little bit of time to create those antibodies, even if you do already have COVID-19. So when I did the test, I should have informed myself a little bit better. Thankfully, I self-quarantined anyway, so it didn't really have an effect. But I'm sure there's some people who go and, like me, think that that is a test, which gives you your answer. You know, if you're negative, and you can go about with your normal life. I just want to say that it is not. So if you do have symptoms, and if you can in some way have the test through the nose done, which is unpleasant, I will give you that, but it's definitely worth the unpleasantry to be able to know if you risk passing it on to someone else or not. So if you can, that seems to be the most accurate one. Again, I'm sure, you know, there have been some times that hasn't been fully accurate, but it seems to be the best option we have out there and the most accessible one. So if you have a doubt, do that one. The finger one will only tell you if you've been in contact with it before, which is a good thing to know anyways. And yeah, and then go from there. Last thing I want to also say is once you have had it, doesn't mean you're immune to it. From having researched this, my understanding is that you have the antibodies, so your body is maybe slightly more likely to fight back when you come in contact with it again. If you come in contact with it again, but it doesn't mean you're immune at all. So you still need to be careful, and I'm still going to be taking all those barriers. I'm of course going to be wearing a mask. The mask seems to be kind of our best ally, even if not flawless, in the fight against this thing. So I'm definitely going to be wearing the mask and social, you know, distances of 1 meter, or 1.50 meters, and whatever feels reasonable in different scenarios. But yeah, so it's not because you've had it that you can then go about and live your life because you know, fully normally without a mask and doing all that jazz, because you're putting other people at risk despite you already having some form of an antibody in your body. So yeah, those are a couple of things I wanted to say. I think that's pretty much it. I'm gonna, when, you know, I'm allowed to go back out, I am gonna go, you know, and continue filming and do things like that, and I'm not gonna, you know, lock myself in, and I'm just gonna really be careful about wearing that mask and doing everything I can whilst still being able to kind of move forward and keep life going on despite this pandemic. But yeah, I just wanted to answer a couple of those questions. I hope that clears things up. Last time I'm going to talk about this, really. We're going to get back to car stuff now. So thank you for watching the video. Apologize if I feels like I'm drooling on about this too long, but I think it's important information to put out there. And I think if you're lucky enough to have an audience and a platform, you might as well use it, especially in a situation like mine where I've actually contaminated this COVID-19. So stay safe out there, be responsible, think of others and not just yourselves, whilst taking care of yourselves as well. So thank you guys, take care, see you soon, bye-bye.